kept having infections. I ended up having 4 brain surgeries. And the skull now used to be bone, now it's prosthetic. And everything is healing up. The prosthetic was put in May of last year, and they don't want you doing any exercise. I had a ride coming up, the Minuteman ride. So I had to be in Boston in 2.5 months, and I was like, yeah, I'm doing it. So Aaron, my boss with Project Rebirth, said, you're signed up? I was like, awesome, awesome, I'm going. So they put it in, it healed up, the stitches healed up. Only 250 stitches, the staples. To give you an idea, it goes from here to here, this size of my hand. So I went and I did that ride, and my wife was like, no, ride one day. That's it. I rode every single mile. The ride ended in Manhattan and at the World Trade Center at the 9/11 Memorial Museum. When we went in that building, it changed my life. This was my first view of it since 2002. And the difference is not even describable. Now Jenny met us there, and she was, okay, you guys are late. No, she didn't say that, but I could see it in her eyes. So we need to, you know, so we moved in the building, and we had an hour to get through what we had to get through, and we did, I mean, so the perfect guide to do that was Jenny. And I recommended Jenny and Amy to Senator Radcliffe today too. He's going to take us up on it because I'm going too, and Tim Brown. So too many names, I can tell you a lot more about that. So anyways, the first thing we did is we all got registered. We all went in the building. We went straight down to the bottom at the base of the North and South Towers. And we watched the Rebirth at Ground Zero, which is a movie that really builds through rapid filming, that like a picture at a time. Time lapse. Thank you very much. I finally lost a word. Time lapse. And what that does is it shows you everything. And 2 of my best friends, Tim Brown and Tanya, were there with us. And they were also part of the people who were doing the narration of this. It was amazing. It's very hard to watch, but you still, all of you still need to go. So, yes, I was a battalion chief. I do like to give orders. I'm sorry. So, anyways, we went down there and we watched that, and I have good balance now, but I had a hard time getting out of there, to be honest with you. It hit me really hard. Then we went around and we went to my helmet, and that's when the tears started. It's hard to describe the feeling of something that you used on the job to see it in a museum in a very highly secure area. And at that point we had about how many riders did we have with us, Jenny? Probably 30?
Yeah, about 30 that made it to the helmet viewing.
Right, and so we went in this room, and you go through this big, it's a big door that swings, and the security folks are in there like, okay, no pictures here. Got that? No pictures here. Got that? Everybody comes through the door. We made it to the gear. She said, it's here. You know, I felt so blessed to be able to represent Arlington at this museum. So, and then all the cameras started coming out of the pockets, and we are all wearing spandex. Can you imagine that? I mean, you guys are dressed perfect to go in that museum right now, but we were in spandex. So they got their cameras out, and then the security guards, they said, "Put the cameras away." And they're like, "No." And then, these are military folks, I know them all. "Put the cameras away." And I didn't know what to do. I'm like, where are we gonna go with this? And then they said, "We are not gonna put them away because this is this guy's gear," and all this. They were all pointing at me, and they're like, whose gear is that? And they pointed me out, and they gave them my name, and they're like, "Oh, geez." They turned around and put their heads down because they didn't want to, they had to let it go. And the pictures were like, it was amazing, and a lot of them got posted, and I got even more friends on Facebook that day. Probably the best way I can describe that visit to the museum. After seeing the beginning, which all of us saw, wherever we were, how many of you don't remember exactly what you're doing on 9/11? Everybody remembers that. This is one of the harshest times in our history, and it always will be. Going down to watch the movie, and then going through as much stuff as we could go through to get up, and then getting a view of the tree, the tower, the areas where the north and south towers were, completely a change over what we saw the entire year. Actually, several years after 9/11. So what it did to me is it transformed the way I view life. It's extremely obvious that what it does is it tells us about recovery. This is not only the recovery of New York City, it's the recovery of the United States, and of everybody that gets to see it. It really changed my life. The way I view things is now completely different. Now I'm back to a public service in a way with Project Rebirth. I live to develop resilience for first responders and for military members. Extremely important. It's something that we really need to do to prepare people for this type of event. So after that visit, I visited with my family, got them up there. They loved it. And Alice met us there. And, Amy, Jenny, and it was amazing. What I did is I brought my fire helmet. I made the decision, because it did not belong in the closet. So I decided to give it up. I gave it to them, and we went to a very secret area where they keep it to make sure it stays secure. The gloves were going on and everything. I was like, it's just a helmet, But they take care of it. I completely trust them, and I thank them for accepting that. All I want to say is thank you for the nomination from the the 9/11 Memorial Museum, the acceptance of it. I am. I'm still in a dream, but I still like to talk. And all of you, thank you for what you're doing here. This is so important. You're amazing. You're inspirational. Thank you to everybody, and continue, and anything I can ever do to help, I would be happy to do so. So I'm hoping we will all stay in touch. Thank you so much for having me here.
There you go. Show me the good side. There you go. That's going to give me 2 shots. Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
All right. Now I have the great pleasure of introducing one of our great friends in Congress. Somebody who has come and spoken to us, I think, every year for the past several years, is always accessible, always willing to help promote museums in Congress and more broadly. Very reachable, very accessible. Please join me in welcoming Congressman Tonko from New York.
Thank you, Ford, and it's always a pleasure to be with this audience because we're so linked together in the efforts to advocate for resources and in the general mission statement that you all embrace, we all embrace. Allow me to introduce Emily Duhovny, who's over in the corner here. I do that because she's one of my co-workers and she's going to be circulating a very important letter on your behalf, our behalf. So, thank you, Emily. But let me welcome forward and all of these fans and believers in museums and library services across the country that understand that the value added here is powerful. As we just heard from Robert Gray, thank you for introducing a moment of history to us that is a very powerful moment, and it just teaches us how very tender our moments in history are and how artifacts that speak to those moments strike the senses. And so it's very important to continue in the advocacy for robust funding for the Institute of Museums and Library Services. Why? I think basically because you are an agent, you are agents that reach across this country and penetrate into several audiences out there that become engaged with the richness of heritage and with the beauty of all that's collected in our museums and libraries. So I really wish you well on this advocacy venture. Make certain you bring to the attention of your respective colleagues and representatives that there are letters, there is a letter floating asking for robust funding that I'm doing with my colleague Representative Louise Slaughter and with other colleagues like David McKinley, Representative David McKinley and Representative Leonard Lance. And we're asking for robust funding, as we did last year, for 15, we want it for 2016. And because of several reasons. First and foremost, you're reaching some 18 million students a year. That's a tremendous bit of outreach. Just yesterday, I attended at the New York State Museum the New York in Bloom event that uses its funds, the resources they garner, for the after-school programming at the New York State Museum. It's a very powerful connection with students, and it's a great way to rush spring in upstate New York. And this year, there was no more important year to do that, as we have endured through a very difficult winter. But New York in Bloom is fully in bloom, and it blossoms on behalf of the New York State Museum's after-school program. I'm a regular attendee, and I love supporting those efforts. And so the 18 million that are reached, those 18 million students, are making a powerful statement, and you're pouring some $20 billion of economic impact into the communities. So why not support robust funding for 2016? I think it's also important to recognize that you are an economic engine. By employing the 400,000 people that you do, you're advancing tourism, cultural education, and library services. Look, those libraries and the museums, the cultural education component is key to quality education. It's part of a successful formula that is essential. It's not just an opportunity, an option. It is essential to quality education. So thank you for being the economic engine that you are. And one of my favorite connections with museums is that you allow for us to more profoundly express a sense of place. And we have talked about this before. I think it's important to understand that the place you call home, or where you now live, or where you work or visit, it's good for us, it's important for us to know that it is a special, significant place. Cultural ed, our museums, enable us to better understand that framework. And also, place esteem, like self-esteem, builds the individual and communities. It allows for torn fabric to be repaired, so to speak. So the place esteem that you drive with your wonderful collections and the messages that you embrace are indeed important factors that add to that place esteem. Finally, I would just say, for the 17,500 museums out there across this country, you are agents, you are beacons that remind us that we need to respect our past, we build upon it, and as a relatively young nation, it encourages, it inspires, it fills us with hope that there is more to be achieved. We the people in search of a more perfect union. So let's continue to search for perfection. Let's do it through cultural ed, let's do it through our museums and our library services, and let's do it in a way that surpasses last year's opportunity, where we had 119 people joining in bipartisan fashion onto our letter of advocacy for resources, robust funding, as you allow me to state. Let's do it with even more numbers this year, but go get them. You know, I was taught by John Lewis from Georgia, Representative John Lewis, who I love, who is an icon of history, whose character is portrayed in the film Selma. He is always telling me in our Brother Paul, Brother John relationship, Brother Paul, make trouble, good trouble. So, museum advocates, let's make good trouble on the Hill and strike everyone's senses and say, sign on to the letter and let's have robust funding. Thank you, everyone.